So today I just wanted to talk a little bit about mind games and manipulation. And I think a lot of people have been in relationships with either a parent or a partner or even just a friend who, you realize after a while that they're kind of manipulating you in certain ways or playing mind games with you. Now, I think the best advice really in most of these situations is just to walk away. That's what they say, what they say, what they say. You gotta walk away. In the end, that's what I did when I was in quite a manipulative relationship, but it can be difficult, and I appreciate that. And if you've got children and you're married and you've got things tied together, it's very, very, very difficult. And you've got to be quite a strong person as well, I suppose, or you just got to get to a point where enough is enough. I think that's the other thing. Most people have different breaking points, but there comes a time or a little, it could just be a little thing, a little thing that makes you kind of just realize, like, you could just wake up to it all of a sudden. I remember getting told about a girl who was with a guy who, when it was like her first boyfriend, and she was like, she loved wearing glitter, she was like that kind of person, and she got with him, and it was like slowly he started to change her. It was like the things she wore changed, and she wasn't allowed to see certain friends, and she wasn't allowed to go to certain places anymore. And all of her friends were telling her, look, you've got to get away from this guy. He's just controlling you. He's just, manipulating you, and he's just bad news. But she was like, but I love him, and he loved her, supposedly, of course. Maybe they do in a way. Maybe that's the only way they know how to love. I don't know. But in the end, it was the glitter that did it. So he said, after a few months or whatever, you can't wear the glitter anymore. And that was when, for her, it was like a wake-up call. That was important enough for her to be like a deal breaker, So everyone has these different things. And I think the situation we're in at the moment is very, very similar. It's like, but the manipulator is the government, and the media and the government seem to be working very much together on this. And maybe they always do, you might say. Maybe it's the same powers behind them both, or one is controlling the other. We don't really know, to be honest, where the true power lies here. I would say, actually, it seems it lies more with the media, I'd say, at the moment. But it's very hard to know what's going on behind the scenes. But there's a lot of almost like gaslighting going on, and guilt tripping, and all of these kind of control measures. And, these are all alarm bells, really, that if you were in a relationship with anyone, these would be alarm bells ringing, or they should be. And I think if your government is doing that, then it's the same thing, isn't it? You need to try and get away. But it's not that easy, is it? So the only other thing is to try and play them at their own game. That's the only other option. If you really can't get away, you would then have to try and outsmart them. And also just not to fall for their tactics anymore. So that's the first thing, isn't it? To see through the manipulation, to realize what it is, and to not be triggered by it, to not fall for it anymore. The second thing is to try and kind of be cleverer, be smarter, play them at their own game, So what's working is all these kind of adverts and constant like bombardment with all these messages, that seems to be working. So if that's working, maybe the opposite needs to happen, bombard people with the opposite message, not the fear, the kind of freedom, the empowerment, making people feel empowered, making people feel like they do have a choice and they do have another option. And I'd say like kind of mass civil disobedience is probably our best option at the moment because we don't want it to become violent. I think violence is very easy for them to deal with because they have always known how to deal with violence. You know, it's very easy, isn't it? And it all gets nasty and bloody, and you know, I think it's best to avoid that, avoid the chaos, avoid the violence. But mass disobedience, I think, is much more tricky for them to deal with. So that's what I would suggest. Yeah.